They forced her to kneel in the courtyard, but in the end, the whole village ended up kneeling before her. They said she was cursed, a woman born with silence in her voice and fire in her eyes. At dawn, they dragged her across the courtyard stones, forced her to kneel. As the entire village gathered to watch her humiliation, no one spoke for her, not even her own family. But that day, the last day she knelt, would become the first day history remembered her name, because by the end of her life, those who condemned her, those who doubted her, those who spat at her feet, would kneel before her, begging for mercy. This is not a tale of witches or legends. It is the forgotten truth of a woman who rose from disgrace and reshaped an entire village with nothing but will, courage, and a ghost-like quietness they never understood until it was too late. Before we begin this haunting journey into the past, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss the stories history tried to bury. Her name was Ilara Vintrel, born in the year 1436, in the borderlands between the fading English rule and the rising French provinces. Her father was a stonemason, her mother a midwife, and yet Ilara possessed something neither of them did, an uncanny resolve, the kind that grows not from privilege, but from enduring what others wouldn't survive. She was not known for beauty, nor charm, nor voice. In fact, she spoke so little that villagers began to mock her silence. They called her the mute crow, convinced that if she ever opened her mouth, she would summon misfortune. In a world where the church and fear walked hand in hand, silence became accusation. At 16, she was forced into marriage with Thomas Vecnar, a merchant's son burdened with debt and anger. The marriage contract was signed not out of love, but transaction. Ilara's father needed coin for a sick relative, and Thomas needed someone he could command. Their union was sealed without celebration. No music, no feast, just signatures, and a look in her eyes that seemed to say, "This is only the beginning." Thomas's home was built with strong walls, but inside, everything trembled. He was short-tempered, always suspicious, always calculating. He hated that Ilara never begged for anything. "Even prisoners beg," he once said to her. "But you watch me like a priest, judging sins." She didn't reply. She simply continued her work, organizing ledgers, cleaning, helping the merchant caravans pack goods for trade. Eventually, people noticed that Thomas's failing business began to rise. One traveler said Thomas was lucky to have a wife whose silence didn't waste time. Thomas responded with a whisper, "Luck? She watches everything. I don't know if I married a wife or a spy." As wealth grew, so did fear. Ilara corrected records before mistakes caused profit loss. She suggested new routes that cut travel time. Some nights, she spent hours observing patterns of trade, simply by candlelight and silence. Thomas began to wonder how a girl who never studied could understand numbers better than him. That doubt became poison. By the year 1457, Thomas was respected. Their household expanded. Workers, clerks, servants. Ilara oversaw them all with quiet precision, never raising her voice, and that silence made her powerful without appearing so. Rumors began to spread. She does not speak because she hides something. Some said she had visions. Some said her silence connected her to forces beyond the church. Others claimed she kept secrets about people just by watching their movements. In a town ruled by fear, knowledge looked like witchcraft. Then came the night. Everything changed. The merchant house lost its accounts ledgers, every record gone. Thomas accused her first. "You know every document, every coin, every detail," he shouted. "If someone could ruin me, it would be you." She looked at him calmly, then reached into the fireplace and pulled out a half-burnt page, evidence that someone was already burning documents to hide their tracks. It was not Ilara. She had saved what remained, but Thomas didn't care. He needed someone to blame, someone to present before the town council to protect his reputation. So he made a decision that would seal her fate. The next morning, as the sun rose, guards arrived. Thomas stood behind them, silent. She was dragged into the courtyard, forced to kneel on the cold stone. People gathered, whispering. Who would have thought? The silent wife was a thief. The priest read accusations of betrayal, witchcraft, and manipulation. For the first time in years, she looked up with disappointment, not fear. But one person in the crowd saw what others didn't. Her younger brother, Adrian. He had come to visit her that morning, but instead, he witnessed her public humiliation. Something in him broke when he saw her forced onto her knees. Because he knew she wasn't silent because she was weak. She was silent because she was planning. Adrian stepped forward, about to speak in her defense. But a voice interrupted. "I have proof of her crimes," someone declared. A cloaked woman stepped from the edge of the crowd. No one expected it, especially not Ilara, because that woman was her own mother, and she was holding a sealed document, a document that could destroy everything. What was inside it would change not just Ilara's fate, but the entire village itself. The courtyard fell into a strange silence as Ilara's mother stepped forward, clutching that sealed document. Her face was pale and her hands trembled, not with age, but with fear. For years, she had been the trusted midwife of the village, the one who helped bring life into the world. Now, she stood ready to condemn her own daughter. The priest demanded she read the accusation, but she didn't. Instead, she turned to Ilara and whispered, just loud enough to be heard, "I warned you, child. Your mind would bring danger, not blessing." The document was opened. It contained meticulous notes, written in Ilara's own handwriting. Details about every merchant deal, every price shift, every family's debt. Even secret affairs and political alliances were mentioned. But none of it was malicious. She hadn't used it to threaten anyone. She had simply kept records, observed patterns, helped her husband avoid mistakes. Yet to the frightened minds of the village, knowledge this sharp felt like a blade. People began to murmur, "She watches everything. She knows too much." One man shouted, "Is this not power greater than a king, to know every weakness?" Another replied, "A woman should not see so deeply. This is not right." Her mother continued reading. With each sentence, people's doubts turned into fear. And in medieval times, fear quickly became justice. The council announced their decision. Ilara would be banished, stripped of her rights, name, and household. Thomas did not protest. He stood beside the council, not his wife. Still, she did not cry. She rose from her knees, brushed the dust from her gown, and spoke at last. Only one sentence. "A village afraid of knowledge is a village afraid of its future." Her words echoed and unsettled them even more. She was exiled to the outer lands, a place where only widows, debtors, and the forgotten lived. But exile only freed her. Away from the noise, she did the one thing no one expected. She taught. Farmers who had lost everything came to her. She studied the land, helped them plant better crops. Mothers sought guidance. She tracked illness patterns and prevented disease. Soon her name began to return in whispers, but not as a curse, as a quiet hope. Meanwhile, Thomas's fortune began to crumble. Without her insight, his trade routes failed. His clerks miscalculated debts. Rivals used his weakness to corner him. Within 2 years, he was nearly ruined, and the villagers began to ask one question. Was the silent woman the reason he ever succeeded at all? Then came the year 1460. A brutal winter struck. Crops failed, fever spread, and death became more common than prayer. The village was collapsing, and they had no one to turn to, no one, except the woman they had forced to her knees. By now, her small settlement outside the town had flourished. For the first time, the exiled were eating full meals while the village starved. So the council made a decision that burned their pride. They sent a messenger to her. He knelt at her door and begged her to return. Ilara came back not as a villager, but as a strategist. She organized rationing, created work divisions, led medicinal research using plants others ignored. She demanded no pay, no title, only order and discipline. Under her guidance, hunger began to fade, trade reopened, children stopped dying in their sleep, and slowly, the same people who once pointed at her in suspicion now waited at her door for advice. They did not call her witch, they called her Mistress Ilara. One day as the sun rose over the village, her former husband, Thomas, came to see her. He looked thinner, older. He stood before her, unable to meet her eyes. After a long silence, he whispered, "Everyone follows you now. I never understood you, not once, and yet you saved all of us." She did not answer him. She only turned away, as if the past no longer had a place beside her. And in truth, it didn't. By spring, she was no longer merely respected. She was trusted, but power built without ambition is the rarest kind, and it unsettles people more than tyranny ever could. Years later, when the region's lord visited the village to restore political order, he asked a strange question. "Who governs this town now?" "I don't see a mayor." They told him, "We do not follow one ruler. We follow her guidance." He asked where she learned leadership. They replied, "She learned while kneeling." The Lord asked to meet this woman, and on the day of his visit, history turned quietly, for when he arrived, he did not see her kneel before him. Instead, his entire escort, guards, clerks, and advisors, knelt to her. They'd been her students once, men she had fed when no one else would, children she treated when even priests had given up. And so, in the courtyard, the very place they shamed her years ago, every person bowed. Not by force, but by choice. Ilara only said one thing that day. A silent woman can hear what power often forgets to listen to. And history finally gave her a place. Never underestimate quiet strength. True power doesn't scream. It endures, learns, and waits. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel for more forgotten lives that shaped history in ways the world never expected.